So our last video was a little bit long. I'll say that to say the least. So this one's gonna be a little bit more straight to the point, and I also forgot to tell you guys what kind of turtles were going into the pond. So now that the pond's been set up for probably about a week or so, and the water's kind of cycled a bit, and I know that there's not gonna be like any bacterial blooms or anything of that nature, and if you're not familiar with bacterial blooms, it's usually like when you set up a new aquarium or even a pond outside, just putting that new water into that large enclosure with the filter and everything, sometimes the bacteria will spike. So you'll let that happen before you add in any sort of animals. But it seems like we're good to go, man. So today we're just gonna be talking about a species of turtle that I'm not really super familiar with, but I have worked with a bunch of different species of turtles and tortoises before. And these guys are New Guinea Sideneck turtles, and scientific name I think is Alcea Nova Guinea or something of that nature. I don't want to butcher it too much, but they are pretty turtles. I mean, I'll say that to say the least. So I'm just going to give you guys kind of just an idea on care based on what I've been doing for probably about the last 6 months or so since I purchased these guys. So when I got them, they were absolutely tiny, but as you can see right now, based on his cute little face, they're getting on the larger side. They're probably about 3.5 inches or so, which is usually a good size that if you're gonna put your turtles outside for the summertime, or if you're in a warmer climate where it stays warm enough to keep them outside all year, that 3.5 to 4 inches range is usually a good size to get them outside. But when I got them, they were probably about quarter size. And they are captive bred from a breedery in Florida from my understanding. And I try to always make sure when I'm purchasing animals like these that I'm getting them from places where they're either captive bred or they're farm raised in an area where the person that's getting them and then, you know, deworming them if that's something that needs to be done when they do get them. They're just taking good care of the animals when they get them in, and it's coming from a farm where the people are, you know, they're making their money from it, but they're also taking good care of the animals before items get shipped out, and there's not as many losses in between or any hiccups that happen, because there's a lot of weird ways for you to get animals that you're not supposed to have. So I try and make sure it's sustainable as possible. And these guys are of least concern on the IUCN list as well. So it's not a huge concern, but I'd say the easiest way to do it, man, for any turtle or tortoises, it may not look as pretty as a large aquarium, but as far as you being able to clean it and being able to slowly but surely upgrade the enclosures as the turtles get larger, these black tubs from Home Depot, man, they're gonna be your cheapest outlet that can hold a lot of water, that's easy to clean if the tank gets super dirty. And then as they grow, you can go from different size to different size. So I believe this one is a 27 gallon, and previously I had them in like a 17 when they were tiny, around like that quarter size. And then as they've gotten larger, I've just upgraded and upgraded. And then the filter that I have, I always make sure that it can basically filter almost double what the actual capacity is for the water on the inside. So the filter that I've been running is just a Cascade internal filter, and as you can see, it's super important that when you get these that they have different levels of filtering. So this one, as you can see, it's got this filter down on the bottom, which is more of a sponge, which is really good for the bacteria as that builds up. And then it's got a media in the second level and then a pump on the top level, which is gonna help filter the water even more. So these, you can let these get really, really dirty before you have to clean them, and the water will usually stay pretty clear. But having fish in with these turtles, if you notice that they're not eating it as much, will also help as well. So as far as filters go, pretty much any sort of internal filter or even a one of those big canister filters works as well if you have the money to afford one of those. The more water that it can filter, the cleaner that your turtle tank is going to stay, especially when you have these big containers like these ones. And then if your water parameters aren't staying as warm as it's supposed to be, and these guys are only rated for anywhere between, I think, about like 70 to 75 degrees is usually a pretty good amount. Any sort of aquatic water heater that has some sort of gauge on it where you can get an idea on the different levels that you're going to be at. Like with this one, for example, you can twist it side to side and you may be able to see the red kind of moves. That'll let you set it to whichever level that you need to. So I usually kept this one pretty low, and it stays pretty warm in the house, so there's not really any need to do too much water heating, except for during the winter time. Sometimes the room that they're in does get a little bit cold. So outside of that, man, if you've got yourself a big bucket, usually what I'll do is I'll just grab some wood from my backyard. So what I've got in here right now is just a bunch of bark that's fallen off the side of trees that is great for them to climb up and down inside of the water for them to get out and bask on the UVB and the heat as well. And then I just keep it simple on the bottom with no extra soil, sand, rocks, or anything, just because that's even more stuff that you have to clean. Just some more driftwood and things of that nature for them to hide in between. And then I've got some mosquito fish as well as some guppies in there, some live bears that help keep the water nice and clean. And the turtles don't seem to mind them. Outside of that, man, as far as diet goes and where these guys are from, they're from a few sets of islands close to New Guinea, from my understanding. And in those islands, they'll usually stay in like streams and rivers and things of that nature, which is pretty common for any type of turtle. And I'd say most turtle feed is pretty synonymous with almost any species that you can get, unless it's like a larger species, obviously, that gets like huge, then, you know, your meals are just going to be on the larger side. But they are omnivorous, even though the vast majority of their diet is going to be insects, possible fish, and snails for these guys, for example. But as far as dry foods go, I kind of have a running set of food right now, and this will kind of give you an idea on everything that we've got. So the Missouri aquatic turtle diet, which is great if you're looking for any sort of diet, turtle or tortoise. Missouri is going to be your best friend. I've got these dried red shrimp as well, which they love. And then when they were babies, I had the aquatic natural turtle food from ZooMed. Let's see if I can get that in focus. Yeah, aquatic turtle food from ZooMed, and these are just tiny, tiny pellets. I didn't want to waste them, so I did put the rest of those in with this mix that I made now that they're going outside. And then Calcium Plus, if you're feeding any sort of crickets, roaches, or anything of that nature, is great to put on the crickets just to give them additional calcium. And then just to give them a bit of a varied diet, this one, it does have a bunch of different things in it, like Alaskan salmon, whole seafood, but this is actually a newt and salamander food that I found prior to being able to find the baby tortoise pellets, because for some reason they were impossible to find everywhere. But I also have these slow release ones, which you guys may have seen in the last video. And what these do is kind of release calcium into the water and provide the turtles with the calcium as well as water conditioning, just to help keep the water parameters safe. So these kind of look like that. They're just like a turtle with like engraved into like a calcium block that will slow release in the water and just provide a bunch of nutrients. So as far as dry food goes, I kind of have all of that mixed up, as you can see in here. And then live food, I'll sometimes do crickets as well as the roaches. And then because they're so small right now and I breed fruit flies for my baby anole species that I have inside, I do fruit flies as well, and they go crazy for those because the fruit flies will just float on top of the water and the fish will eat at them, and these guys will eat at them. But now that they're going outside, there's a chance that, you know, some insects may be falling into the water, and we don't treat any of our grass around here. Nothing is ever treated, all natural as far as getting rid of weeds. Grass is cut with an electric lawnmower, so there's no possible, you know, oils or anything that could possibly be getting into the water as well. But anything that falls into the water is free game for them, so it's just going to be on them and the fish and the biofilter to keep everything clean, man. But almost forgot one big key thing. They do need UVB and they need heat as well. I do recommend getting the longer strip UVBs than these ones because these don't give off a good output. But now that these guys are getting outside and their shell is still pretty healthy just because of the varied diet as well as the UVB that they were getting, now that they're coming outside, they're probably going to grow a lot faster and the shells are going to become a lot healthier as they sit out and bask in the natural sunlight, which is going to give them the best UVB. But as far as the heat goes, basking spot should be anywhere between about like 85 to 89 or so. And then water temperature, like I said before, should be about 70 to 75 degrees, somewhere in that range. And then as far as the heat goes, depending on how far you're going to have this away from your animals, it's probably going to be anywhere between like a 25 watt up to 100 watt. And then I would just recommend a heat gun on the basking spot just to make sure that you're getting that perfect temperature. That is pretty much the setup. And I do have two of these guys, so let's get a good look at them now that you kind of have an idea on how care goes. It's pretty self-explanatory, so when they're inside, keep them inside one of those black Rubbermaid tubs, and then once they get outside, if you guys want to set up a pond, you can go back and watch the video that I made last week to get an idea on how to set up an outdoor pond for yourself. But they're absolutely adorable, and I love that you can see them kind of breathing on the side there. And then this guy over here, I'm pretty sure that they're both males, but just to get an idea, usually the females will kind of have like a U shape, and then the males will kind of have a V shape, and then of course fingernail length as well as tail length. But right now they're both still on the smaller side, and these guys can get up to about 30 centimeters. And it's looking like they both have similar tails right now, but this one does look to have more of a U versus this one has more of a V. But we won't know until they get a little bit larger, and then it'll be easy to tell because the long fingernails will be the males, and then longer tails will be male, and then shorter tail will be female. But that's pretty much a full rundown on these guys, man. I'm gonna take them down to the pond, let them in so you guys can see everything all updated now. And of course, if you guys have any questions, man, feel free to drop them down in the comments. But thank you for tuning in for another video. If you ever want to get any turtles, have any questions about them, or you're thinking about it and something seems questionable, or you're just trying to figure out what to do, and if you want to do it, feel free to shoot me a message on Instagram too, man. I'll reply a lot faster there. Let's go get these guys in the pond, man.